Greetings, and welcome to the Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. We hope you enjoy what you're about to see, and you can find us at the corner of Broadway and Church Streets at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings, or you can find us online at bgmethodist.org and on Facebook at Bowling Green First United Methodist Church. So we are kind of in this next part of the Sermon on the Mount, and it's kind of a long process of getting there. The Sermon on the Mount is one of the most theologically and spiritually important messages that we have of what Jesus tells us, but it's also one of the most difficult, because for the last several weeks, we've been kind of talking in bits and pieces about the impossible task that Jesus has set up. We started off with the Beatitudes, and they can be summarized by saying, "Happy are the poor." Now, there's not many of us that like to be poor. We like to have stuff. We like to have things. We like to be able to go and do. And so when we're saying, "Happy are the poor," that begins to kind of grate on us just a little bit. We aren't quite sure what to do with that. But then we take the next step and we get to that part that says, "Let your light shine." And we're supposed to be like the shining city on the hill where folks can look up and they can see us shining. The only problem is that means that folks can look up and they can see us. And that's kind of a hard place to be in sometimes, where that folks can see who we are and what we're doing, and we aren't always comfortable with folks being able to see that. And then we take this next part. This is the part where Jesus says, "Keep all the law." He says, "I didn't come to abolish the law, but I came to fulfill it." Every dotted I and every crossed T, all of it is important. We can't just do a little bit here and a little bit there. We got to deal with the whole thing. Remember, this is all part of the impossible task that Jesus is describing. Because then we get to the part of it where everything kind of seems to hit that brick wall, where we all come to a screeching halt. This is the part where Jesus is saying, "You've heard that it was said this, but I say to you instead, don't even think it." I don't care what it is you're doing, don't even think about doing it. If you've thought about it, even if the words never left your mouth, even if you never acted on any of it, if you've even thought it, you've sinned, you're done. Like I said, that's the part where most of us come to kind of that screeching halt, because that's a hard part to get past. And then just kind of, to top everything off nicely, Jesus says, "Love your enemy." He says, "Don't worry about loving the people you like. That's easy. Everyone can do that. But no, I say, love your enemy." That's the place we end up with all of that. That is the impossible task that Jesus sets up for us in the Sermon on the Mount. And he knows that it's impossible, and he's doing that intentionally because he knows this, and a lot of it, it's what we're doing to ourselves. We get ourselves all tied up into knots and all, and everything kind of, we get everything it just kind of sits right here, and just kind of everything begins to kind of fester and boil, and we don't know what to do. What we really need is some sort of relief. We've got to have some sort of relief that gets us out of that place. And there's different ways we can take that relief, and you all will probably know the response. If I say the words to you, "Plop, plop, fizz, fizz," you know much better about that than the other places. This is what it sounds like.
You worked too hard and ate too much. The cheesecake made you green. With your aching head and stomach, there's this messy soul feed. Alka-Seltzer, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is.
You all know that. I mean, I never saw the really old commercials for that, but the jingle stuck with me. Now, I've heard that jingle over and over and over and over again, and I have never once used Alka-Seltzer for its intended purpose. I've used it for lots of other things, but never as, for its intended purpose like that. But every time I hear the word relief, that's what I think of. Now, that's not what Jesus wants, is that, we come to a point we need relief and we go find some Alka-Seltzer. He is trying to give us, in the Sermon on the Mount, he is providing for us relief. But in order to get there, he's got to get past a lot of the stuff that we do to ourselves. He's got to get past a lot of that stuff that we add on there, because we have a hard time accepting that God would send His only Son into the world to save us, to give us salvation, to give us hope for new life, and He does that all because He loves us, and there is no required payment on our part. We don't deal well with that, because we've been told from the time we were that tall that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And that if someone does give us a free lunch, we need to look behind us and see what the catch is going to be. Because there's something else that's going to be coming up. We don't do well with that, so instead we hear what it is that Jesus says, and then we say, well, no, it can't be that easy, so here, we're going to put all of this other stuff on top of this so that we can make sure we feel properly penitent, or properly burdened, or properly guilty because we can't manage all of it, to make sure that we feel properly chastised for this gift that God is giving to us. That's why Jesus is setting up that impossible task in the first part of the Sermon on the Mount, because that's not a new thing that we do. That was the folks He was talking with at that day, in that time, in that day and age, had done the exact same thing. They had taken what God was saying and then added a whole bunch of other stuff onto it, and it was causing this heavy weight on people. And Jesus was coming and providing relief to that, finding ways to help them let go of that burden and let go of that stuff, so that they could actually get on with the business of living their life, with being a faithful person, and with growing beyond where they were in that moment in time. Jesus gets at that this morning with us. We've got these two different passages. On the one hand, we've got the showy religion. That's all the showy stuff that He was talking about. And on the other hand, we have the passage on treasures, or I'll talk about it as we get down the way of it, as quotas. So we start with this idea of the showy religions. And this is the part where Jesus says, if you're doing all these things so people can see you, and you're making sure when you're fasting that people can see you cinching your belt up, or when you are praying that you do so in public so people can see you, or one of the examples He gives is, if you are giving to the poor but you are doing so in public so you can receive the blessings from others, it says you're doing it wrong. That last one especially was part of a practice that was being used at the time, where, especially if you had a lot of resources or a lot of wealth and you did something wrong, you would go into a public place, you would make your grand apology, and you would have something that you could give to the poor, and the poor would come, they would receive that gift, and they would give you a blessing in return. It was all very public. You know what happens when we do stuff like that? After a while, it becomes formalized, it becomes ritualized, and we lose all the meaning in there. Our modern equivalent of that today is when we see politicians that do something wrong, and they come on TV, and they've got their wife beside them, and they offer their apologies for what they've done. And then you cut to whichever news station is covering it, if you're watching it on, and then they are grading the apology for the right amount of contrition, for the right amount of did they look, apologetic enough? That's where we see, that's our kind of our modern day comparison to it. Jesus says, no, that's ridiculous. That kind of stuff, if all the reason you're doing something is just to be seen doing it, stop, because that's not what's important. Then he takes us on to the next part, and he says, where are you putting your treasures? Are you putting them up in heaven, or are you putting them up down here on earth? He says, if you're putting them up on earth, that's not the place you need to be doing it. You need to put them up you need to be building them up in heaven. Now, this is where we run into a couple of problems. Because the way that, I have to admit that I have preached on this passage, and I've heard lots of sermons preached on this passage, as we go off in this tangent that says, that means, you shouldn't put your focus on materialistic things. No matter how much, and we were just talking about this in the Passing of the Peace, no matter how much I want that new Star Wars toy that just came out this week, that is the contemporary equivalent of R2-D2. It looks kind of like a little soccer ball with a dude on it, and it's remote controlled, and you can, is it remote controlled still? If you control it with your phone, I don't know, but you can take your phone and you can tell it where to go and what to do. Like, I would really love one of those, because I'm that kind of nerd, and I think that would be a lot of fun. I wouldn't get anything done ever after that, but it'd be a lot of fun to have. But that's where we get kind of sidetracked onto material things. But that's not the main point. The place where we get sidetracked, the place where we put most of our focus, is not the place place where we need to be. Because where Jesus is taking us in this builds on everything that's come before. The impossible task that he set for us, that he says, I know you can't manage that. No one can manage it. It's impossible for you to be able to do all of that. Talking about showy religion and some of these other things that he's had in there, he is setting us up to say that, let's take a look at the stuff we do because we think we have to do it because we are churchy people. Those are some of the treasures that we try and put up with when we look around. And these are, and the next examples are either things that I have thought myself, or, and actually this is both, that I've heard other people tell me over time. Where we say, well, no, I can't get up and pray in front of people. I don't know the right words. I don't know how to do it. I don't like to talk in front of people. That's the one I've heard most from every place I have ever been, and some that I haven't. I've heard people say, I can't pray in front of people. I don't like to talk in front of people. But we think, we should be able to do that because we're Christian people and we have to do that, and that we feel like we're doing something wrong if we can't. Sometimes we want to be able to pull out just that right scripture passage, but we aren't very good at quoting chapter and verse because maybe we don't know our Bible as well as we would like. And so we get to when we can't do that very well. Or maybe we look and we see that there are folks who give more than us. Which, it doesn't bother us when we know that maybe they make more money than we do. But it's the folks who don't make as much money as we do but still give more that it's like all of this adds to this gut-churning stuff that ties us up into knots, that adds extra weight onto us because we think we've got to be doing all of these things, and Jesus says, no. That's not the point. If that's what we're doing, then if that's what we think we have to do in order to build our treasure up in heaven, then we're doing it wrong. Because at that point, what that's saying is that you've got to have a certain number of good deeds. You've got to meet a minimum quota in order to get into heaven, and that's not what we do. There is no minimum quota. There's no quota that we have to meet to get into heaven. There's no certain amount of treasure we have to build up before St. Peter lets us in through the pearly gates. That's not how this works, and that's what Jesus was trying to get us away from. So what is it that he says instead? As we look at that, where should we find our relief? First, we got to let go of all that extraneous stuff that we build up. But there are three things that we can look at instead that begin to provide us that relief, that help us to find that relief that comes through Christ. First is that he wants us to be healthy. That's part of our second scripture reading today was talking about, are we healthy? Are we spiritually healthy? Are we doing what we need to do so that we can have a healthy spiritual life, or at the very least a healthier spiritual life? Because sometimes it takes a lot of work to get to being healthy, but we can be working on it. And Jesus knows, because he's told us this in lots of places before, that we're all going to be different when we do that. There's no minimum, there's no set guidelines of what a healthy person looks like. What is healthy for each of us is going to look different depending on who we are and where we are in life at that time. But that's one of the places we have to be working on is, are we healthy spiritually, or at least working on getting healthier? The second part of it is are we growing? And again, there is no amount that we are supposed to grow. There is no speed at which we are supposed to grow. But are we growing? There's no minimum height requirement there. This is, I've got some rather short friends, and they are happy when I say this, that there is no minimum height requirement. They may not be able to get into the big rides at Six Flags, but they can still get into heaven because there's not a minimum height requirement. Just are we still growing? That's the key. Even if it only seems like it's been about that much, sometimes that is an amazing amount of growth. It is harder work to go that far than it is to go that far. But are we making that growth? Are we making progress along the way? And the last part of it is, are we supporting others? Because Jesus tells us we are in this as a community together, and at different points in our life we have received support and help from others. And part of what it means to be in community is that we also offer to help others. But again, there is not a quota that we have to meet for that. But there is, just are we doing it in big ways and in small ways? Are we working to reach out and to help and to support those around us. This is where the relief comes that Jesus is trying to get across to us, that we don't have to be burdened down by all of this other stuff, but that through him, we can be released from those other things so that we can have the opportunity to find what makes us healthy, to find what helps us to grow, to find ways that we can help and we can support others around us. That's where Jesus wants us to be, to let go of all that other stuff, to find our relief so that we can grow fully into the people that God wants us to be. And what's great about that kind of message is that's a message that we can also share with others. Because we aren't telling them you've got to do all of these certain things, but we're saying, work on it. And here's where you can find the help that you need in order to make that kind of progress. This is the message that we can share. This is the relief that comes through Christ. This is what can guide us in the days and weeks and months to come. I invite us as we go forward from here to find what makes us spiritually healthy, to find what helps us to grow, and to find the ways, in big and small ways, that we can reach out and support others. Let us go and do that work in his name. Amen.